Hey guys, welcome back to As a Man Thinketh on UNASA TV. I'm going to talk a little bit today about some bacteria cases across the country that have been killing cows. This mysterious outbreak of these bacteria are killing cows. But real quick, I wanted to remind you to shop at UNASA Trading Co. to support this channel. We got demonetized last week, believe it or not, for posting a video about carbon pipelines. Apparently having negative views against carbon pipelines is now a reason to be censored, demonetized. By shopping at UNASA Trading Co., you are supporting our independent journalism. You're also supporting our nonprofit, which goes out and shares the lives of farmers and helps people understand more about agriculture. It's very important that we educate consumers and we educate the public about what is actually happening on farms and ranches, because what they're being told is a big fat lie. Anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about these mysterious cases that have been killing cows across the United States. Many of you have heard about the bird flu that's been killing cows across the United States as well. And in fact, they just recently had the first case of a human bird flu case where the human came in no contact with animals. Apparently they live in a bubble or something.
Doctor, we've just got some breaking news just into us. I wanted to run by you. The CDC confirming the first human case of bird flu in Missouri today. And the state's health department says this patient had no exposure to animals and was not a poultry worker. Does that raise any sort of red flags?
It does, Christina, and just to be clear here, what we're seeing that's new here is that, in previous cases of bird flu in humans that we've seen, a handful have popped up in the U.S. over the last several years, we've seen that there has been an exposure to cattle or to other animals. I mean, this one, there's no known exposure yet, so I think we're still waiting to learn more. We don't know if this patient, was a man or woman or age, but what we do know is that they did test positive. They are recovering. They are doing well. But Christine, really the big take-home point is we don't have the testing here. We're making a lot of the same mistakes we saw in the COVID pandemic, where we're sort of flying blind here, leaving these cases to pop up and us sort of trying to figure out after the fact where they come from. So I think a lot of attention is going to be paid to this human case, and we'll wait to see if any changes happen from officials. Christine?
All right, Dr. Seil, thank you so much.
I'm not telling you this to scare you guys. I'm sure they're going to have a vaccine out shortly, and I'm sure it will save your life. But the point is we've had a lot of different issues with cows over the last several years dying, whether it's from man-made fires that are blamed on climate change, or apparently now bacteria. So some of you have heard a little bit about the anthrax situation going on in Wyoming.
Well, the Wyoming Livestock Board announced this week that anthrax has been confirmed in multiple cattle herds in Carbon County, Wyoming. Now, this is the first time since the 1970s that the disease has been found in any cattle. Now, Dr. Haley Hassel, Wyoming State Veterinarian, said that the Wyoming Livestock Board will continue to work with producers and private veterinarians to reduce that further spread and human exposure or have recommendations as well for the carcass disposal and the vaccinations.
Oh, thank goodness there's a vaccination.
This particular situation seems to be regionalized just to this particular area. It's only impacted one wildlife, that's a moose. The rest of it that is impacted have all been cows. So this anthrax is definitely segregated to these grazing areas where these cows are. Anthrax is actually naturally occurring in Wyoming soils. So it shouldn't surprise you that you could have an anthrax outbreak. And I think we'll have to see how far this actually spreads, or if it maintains itself just conspicuously within this area. The other bacteria I found rather interesting, and that's in Axtell, Texas. So in Axtell, Texas last June, they started experiencing cows randomly dying. A lot of these cows seemed perfectly healthy before their death, and then suddenly they died.
Ranchers in the Axtell area are concerned for their livelihood after several healthy-looking cows mysteriously died in recent weeks.
News 10's Isabella Quintanilla joins us live from Axtell now with more from one rancher. Isabella?
Yes, Lauren and Gordon, I spoke with Kent Mathis, who is a rancher here in Axtell, and he used to have 19 cattle, but in the last month, he suddenly lost 3 of his cows. Now, after speaking with several of his neighbors, he realized that he's not the only one mysteriously losing seemingly healthy cows.
The first one was probably a month ago, and then the second one was like a week after that. And then 2 weeks ago, I had another one pass away.
According to Mathis, losing 3 cows in the span of a month is an extremely rare thing.
I mean, I have had cattle ever since I was 15 years old, and I have never lost cows.
And then his neighbor shared with him that he recently lost 2 of his own cows and that several other farmers in the area were dealing with the same issue.
The neighbor around the corner lost 4, and then the friend up the road lost 1. And then the other person over at Leroy, he lost 1.
Once Mathis realized multiple ranchers lost cattle recently, he knew something was wrong. While the cause is unknown, Mathis believes it might have something to do with all of the runoff from the rain and flooding they had.
When it rains and it storms a whole lot, the water comes through the creek right here. It's just overflow for the highway and from the fields next to me and stuff.
That creek goes right into his pond, which his cattle all drink from. But Mathis says until the cause has been confirmed, they can't do anything to protect the remaining cattle. Each cow is worth about $2,000, so losing even 1 cow hurts the rancher.
When you lose 3 of them, like I did, it kind of really hurts and frustrates you. If I lost some more, I would be like really devastated.
And they've been investigating this for a while, and they've determined, well, they haven't determined, okay, I take that back, because when I've read the news articles and they actually talked to the state veterinarian didn't want to commit yet to the cause of death. They're still performing autopsies on these cows, still trying to figure it out. But the assumption that's been placed out there is that this is coming from a blue-green algae bloom, which creates a bacteria that could kill cows. It could kill just about anything that drinks it. It could kill humans. It could cause severe rashes on your skin.
Back in June, I talked with rancher Kent Mathis, who has lost a total of 5 cows, all within the span of a few months. After the 3rd death, Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service came out to help determine the cause.
They did soil samples, grass samples, everything that's possible. Nobody could tell me what was going on.
Finally, they tested the water in his tank, which all of Mathis's cows drink from.
He asked for some water samples, and we sent water samples in, and he said it was a bacteria.
What they found was high levels of cyanobacteria, otherwise known as blue-green algae. Dr. Kevin Washburn, a veterinarian with Texas A&M, says this algae is actually pretty common.
It's usually not harmful until it undergoes a bloom, which is basically a rapid increase in growth or multiplication.
According to Todd Sink, an aquaculture extension specialist, these blooms typically happen in stagnant water when there's excess nutrients and it's hot outside. But with all of the heavy rain and runoff we had back in the spring, it's likely this created the perfect conditions for this algae to bloom.
What's happening in a cow field? Those cows are out there grazing off all the vegetation. They're defecating, leaving feces in there. It's all dried out. You get a heavy rain, it washes all the cow poo right into the pond full of nutrients. Population explodes.
When ingested, this releases toxins that can either infect the animal's central nervous system or their liver, leading to sudden death.
It just causes a tremendous amount of damage in a short period of time. It happens quickly, so animals are usually found dead in the vicinity of the water source.
To make sure he doesn't lose any more cattle, Mathis says he had to buy 30 gallons of Cutrine to help control the algae and will have to vaccinate his remaining cows.
The chemicals were over $1,400, and then it probably cost me $200 to vaccinate them.
Between all of the lost cows and the cost of treatments, Mathis says ranchers in Axtell have been hit hard this year.
I talked with the veterinarian with the AgriLife Extension Service here in Waco, who has been looking into the cow deaths in Axtell, and he said while the blue-green algae is a likely cause, he has not yet confirmed a cause of death for the cattle. However, just a little while ago, Mathis called to tell me that another of his cows has just died, and that AgriLife Extension is coming out to do another autopsy.
Blue-green algae, when you look at ponds, we have a pond back there right now that's got a lot of green algae in it. That's not going to kill anything. Blue-green algae is a little bit different. It's a little more severe. And generally, in order to get blue-green algae, you need something to cause that bloom, and so sometimes leaky septics could cause blue-green algae blooms. Too much fertilizer can cause blue-green algae blooms. And so when I heard about this case, my initial thought was, okay, so this is probably happening on a particular ranch where maybe their land management practices, there was a chemical used that shouldn't have been used. They're blaming it on the climate and weather, but here's the problem: is it's happening in Axtell, Texas, and it's not happening all over the area. It's just happening there, right? So when we look at things and we want to blame it on the climate, we want to blame it on the weather, that would be a more regional-based problem. So what I was thinking is maybe this is a single ranch, and this is an issue of land management or an issue of chemicals that may have been applied. You know, what were their practices? Are they putting the sludge out there even after we've had all this PFAS talk? It actually turns out that there's more than one ranch that has been losing cows to this blue-green algae, and it doesn't seem to be in other places. It could also be coming from, you know, if you have overstocked cows on your pasture and you don't have healthy soil, it could be coming from the runoff of the soil from your own cow's feces. The point is this is an interesting case. I don't know what your thoughts are on it. Mine are that I don't think it is conclusive. I agree with the state veterinarian on this one. These cows are probably dying from some sort of bacteria or some sort of weird thing like this, and it could very well be the blue-green algae, but I'd be curious to know if there's anything else that's happened in that area, whether it's one of these manufacturers. We've seen this a lot in the last couple of years, these manufacturers that are putting things out. Maybe there is, I don't know, Bill Gates' farm that's spreading some sort of new chemical on their crops. Whatever it could be, there could be a contributing factor that I don't think that they've looked into yet. And so I'm going to be watching this case a little closer to see what ends up happening. But I do think it's a bit odd that we're seeing these bacteria outbreaks. I feel like we've continuously seen situations impacting the cattle market, and it all comes to a head or at a time when we're being pushed into these alternative proteins. And I'm not saying there's anything to it. I'm just saying it feels like there's a lot going on there. But in both of these cases, the anthrax case and this bacteria case, I can see how it might be an isolated incident with the anthrax and the soil and maybe that particular valley. But if it's climate conditions and it's weather conditions that have caused it to bloom and suddenly become active and start impacting cows and moose, then you would expect that to be a little more on a wider scale. And I think in Wyoming, they're kind of treating it that way. They're saying, we're not even sure if this pocket that we found is the extent of it. As for the cases in Axtell, Texas, the fact that it's not like a big regional area that would be impacted by a change in weather or change in climate conditions that would have suddenly caused these algae blooms to start showing up in ponds and wells, and it's not one particular ranch, which would indicate, you know, a land management issue. Maybe there was something done by mistake. Maybe there was a particular chemical that was used that did it. But this seems to be impacting ranchers within, you know, a vicinity. So that leads me to believe that there could be something else going on there. Now, I'm not saying any of this is malicious at all. I'm just saying that sometimes mistakes happen. Either way, I felt it was a fairly interesting story and thought I'd put it out there and see if any of you guys had heard anything about these particular incidences and what your thoughts are on it. They're interesting stories nonetheless. So leave your comments below. Let me know what you think. And, let me know what you think about being censored for talking about carbon pipelines. I mean, has the world gotten that ridiculous? If it's not safe for a Carmella ad, it's not safe at all. Anyway, guys, until next time, stay safe. I've got a few other videos that I'm going to put out this week, but I've got a lot of work to do around here as well. So hopefully I'll get some of those videos out.